Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the New American Media Podcast. I've got my buddy here, Preyesh Patel. He is a developer, mentor, and has online classes for you guys to learn about real estate development, flipping houses, all kinds of cool things. Thank you for coming on the pod, Preyesh. How are you doing, brother?
I'm good. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your podcast. I'm excited to get after it. I'm doing well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, cool fun fact you were just telling me offline. You just came back from India. You're getting ready to get married. We all know like the South Asian wedding industry, even here in the US, is huge. Tell us a little bit about kind of your plans for the wedding, what's going on. I'm sure you're super busy. Are you doing any of the planning? Because I know in my wedding, between my wife and my mother, they were doing about 90% of it.
I'm in the same boat.
That's awesome. So
Yeah,
how was India? And comparatively, I've not been back since 2016. Kind of want to hear about what you're seeing there.
absolutely. The last time I was there was in 2001. So I was just a little kid at that point. And so this was all fresh and new. I didn't go and visit the little villages or anything. I was mainly in Mumbai the whole time. So major city, like 20 plus million people there, very overwhelming, but very cool to see how there's still that blend of traditional Indian culture, but you can tell that at least the city of Mumbai is trying to modernize with all their restaurants and the bars and the hotels, and the food scene is huge out there. So it was a great experience, and I'd recommend for anyone interested in traveling out there just to see another part of the world. They live a completely different lifestyle than us, so it was cool to see.
Nice, nice. No, I have cousins and family in Mumbai. That's where we're from. That's actually where I was born. Um, what about you? Kind of tell us your parents immigrated here. Were they also from Mumbai or Gujarat, or when did they immigrate here and kind of that story?
Absolutely. So it's kind of funny because only one of my grandparents on my mom's side is actually from India. The other
Oh,
three
wow.
grandparents are from Africa. So I still am Gujarati, 100% Gujarati Indian, but grandparents born in Africa. Both of my parents were born in England, so they're British Indians. And I'll speak for my dad mostly because that's kind of where we're going to talk a little bit more about today. But so my dad's family immigrated to the States, Southern California, near Santa Barbara, California, in 1981. Back in the UK, there was a lot of they call it the Brixton riots. There's a lot of racial riots and tension going on. So
Oh,
my
wow.
grandfather felt like he needed to get out of the country just to make sure that his family was safe and secure. It happened upon that time that one of his best friends who moved to Santa Barbara in 1979, just a couple years before we did, he called up my grandfather and said he actually had a small hotel to invest in with him if you wanted to move out to California, start fresh with your family. My grandfather jumped at the opportunity, and that's when my family immigrated to the States.
That's amazing. Great story. Um, I know a lot of people that have immigrated that same way. So tell me, I guess, growing up in that culture, what were some of the things that you saw that were different at home compared to all the other kids in school and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so there was a very big discrepancy, and I wasn't fully aware of it until late middle school and then up into high school. And the discrepancy was the economic disparity between, because I say Santa Barbara, but I'm a little bit north. I grew up in Lompoc, California, very small farming town just north of Santa Barbara. And the typical demographic is low income to moderately low income, Hispanic based. Then there's some Caucasian people in there. And so a lot of my friends, I didn't realize this because we were just friends at the time growing up as kids. but they were, not, I wouldn't say poverty, but they were very low income families. But I just thought everything was normal. I thought it was normal for my dad at that point in my life. He owned this like a 90-room hotel, a Holiday Inn Express, and then a couple other hotels. So I'm thinking it's completely normal for someone to own assets like that. But all of my friends'
Right.
families were renters. It just goes to show that, naivety and being a kid.
No, that's crazy. How, I guess, was it it took you a while to realize that situation, but what I was kind of trying to get at is what were some of the factors at home that you saw that maybe if you went to a friend's house you did not see? Like what kind of drove your parents' drive and ambition here compared to others?
Yeah, I honestly, I feel like it's almost like a classic immigrant story where they're moving here for that American dream. Grandfather, we were very poor back in the UK. We owned a little Caribbean shop, and so when they moved here, they had that immigrant mentality: work hard, play hard as well, but really just work hard. And so when in my home environment growing up, I saw my grandfather always working. I saw my dad working. I saw my mom being the housekeeper. I saw my grandmother as the housekeeper. And so I believe in our house, there was a lot of discipline, not over disciplinary, but it was a lot of structure, a lot of, hey, they're not telling me what to do, but I'm as a child observing all their mannerisms and their qualities of hard work, of discipline, of budgeting, and just being able to move the needle forward and create that financial prosperity for our family.
Nice, nice. What I like is the fact that I'm sure you've seen a lot of these studies show Indian Americans have the highest household median income in the United States by a lot, right? I think the second is Taiwanese or Filipino Americans, and we're higher than even regular white Americans by like 30 or $40,000. What um outside of work ethic and kind of things that you were talking about, what do you see that attributes to that when you have other friends or family members that are of South Asian descent?
Yeah, so I I really truly feel that we're a lot of our families, I'm not sure about you, but I was the first generation born here in America since everyone else was born outside of the States. And I feel like there's not a sense of entitlement. There is a sense of, hey, I need to get out and grab it and go after it. And I feel like that's the biggest thing. And not to bash on people who are two, three, four, five generations deep in American history, but I just feel like there's almost a sense of entitlement and saying, hey, I deserve this, or almost like they didn't have the access to entrepreneurial ideas. And so I fell into the same trap where people are almost getting brainwashed by the school system as to, hey, you're
100%.
yeah, like, hey, graduate college, incur all of this debt, and you can make 100 grand after 5 years of working your tail off for someone else. Not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that there's more to it than just that, but that's what the school system almost indoctrinates people into.
No, I mean, a lot of things, what they say is that the standardized school system was created in the early 1900s, late 1800s to churn out factory workers, right? You teach them the basic skill sets and knowledge that they need to go work a 10-hour day in a factory. So it was never the school system and the curriculum we have today was never created to think outside of the box and be creative, be more entrepreneurial. And now that I have my own children, I see the same thing. But I was going to say is on top of that, we have a dual parent household and an extended family. And one of the things I found, and I call this brown privilege, is the fact that 90 plus percent of South Asian households, Indian households, have two parents divorce rates are extremely low. And like you mentioned, your grandfather, grandmother, probably your aunts and uncles, all of your cousins, everybody lives nearby, and we're all working toward a common goal. We're all helping each other. If someone needs something, whether it's time, money, ideas, or help, any kind of help, the whole community is there for them. And I think that is something, along with the fact that we have a two-parent household, which today divorce rates in the US are well over 60 plus percent in, white America, Black America, Hispanic America, that we don't see today in the South Asian household. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'll tell you a story because a lot of my friends that I made growing up, elementary, middle school, all the way up through college, none of them had Indian friends. And so when I got introduced into their sphere and we got to know each other as friends, people would be almost taken aback at how close our family is and how tight knit it is. And I'm like, yeah, I grew up with my dad's parents live with us. My grandmother's still with us today. They're all living together, and I grew up with basically four parents, right? I had my mom, dad,
Right.
and my grandparents, and then it was my brother and I. And so it's just a testament to what you just said that I'm very grateful and honored to have a very tight knit family, and everyone's just got each other's backs.
No, that's awesome. Tell me, how is that the same kind of when you started dating your current fiance, and what were those kind of things? I've interviewed some people on here that have been in interracial marriages. They work, they don't work. I don't want to get too much into that, but I kind of want to understand your thought process in um getting into a relationship and how that has been with you. Obviously, you guys are in love, you're getting married. Super cool, excited about that. Just if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess just to start, my fiance is Indian, and her family has a very similar dynamic as my family. Tight knit. They're from Portland. Beautiful family, and essentially, I feel like with my fiance and I, for example, I she was the first and is the last Indian girl I will ever date. I've never dated an Indian woman before that. And I feel like it's mostly because in my area there were no other Indians besides my family, right? And so I would date people outside of my ethnicity. So everyone, my parents, they kind of came to terms with it. Hey, Preyesh is gonna date outside of our race. It is what it is. But and I thought I was going to as well. But looking back, now that I am with my fiance, we're about to get married, our families are intertwined with each other. It I don't want to say interracial marriages don't work, but I'm saying that if you are Indian to Indian or the same race to the same race or religion to religion, whatever it is, it makes things a heck of a lot easier. Being marriage is already a complicated thing from what I hear from all these people who have been married. Well, it has its joys, it has its sorrows, but at the end of the day, you need to work together. And I believe the easiest way to work together is if you have that baseline commonality of religion, of ethnicity, of culture, and things like that.
No, that's amazing. And I love the fact that you said that this will be the last woman that you are with. I think a lot of people today take that concept of till death do us part kind of thing for granted because divorce is so easy. And then you see with Tinder and those kind of other things, it's very easy to swipe right and left, right? I got married before those dating apps were around, but I talked to a lot of guys your age and younger who say it is extremely difficult to date in this day and age because of all of those dating apps.
Absolutely. It's like a Mexican restaurant. On the menu, there's a million choices. And so it's very difficult to choose when you have a million choices.
Nice. I've never heard it put that way. That's funny. So
Yeah.
tell me, growing up, your parents were entrepreneurs. when was kind of what age and what time did you really know that, hey, I'm not going to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, and I'm going to be an entrepreneur and do something on my own?
I actually didn't know until quite recently, maybe when I say recently, 2016. I grew up my whole life, had zero interest in hotels, had zero interest in being an entrepreneur. And it goes back to what I first said with almost being indoctrinated by the school system. Like, hey, this 100K salary is amazing. Go become whatever. And so for me, I was always attracted to financial markets. I love stock market. I love bond market. My dad gave me a little portfolio to play with when I was a kid so that I would tell him to make these trades and I would be doing my little stock analysis. And so from that, I just love charts. And so I ended up wanting to become an investment banker. That was what I was working
Oh, nice.
towards through high school, through college. And I was like, this is cool. And then during college, one summer I had an internship. I had an internship with a tax firm because I wasn't sure if I wanted to do accounting, and I had an internship with an investment banking firm. And ultimately, I went through both of those internships and I hated both of them. I realized that, hey, tax is boring, tax is necessary, but let's have the tax professionals deal with that. And investment banking is exciting and the grind. I love grinding. I love working the long hours, but I just didn't see the hype working 90 100 hour work weeks in order to like please someone else. And so at that point I had decided to basically I didn't know what to do at that point, and this was my junior year in college. And so I asked my dad, I said, hey dad, I don't like anything right now, is it okay if I come and work with you, just to learn the hotel business, because at the end of the day it's going to be my business and my brother's business one day, and I just need to learn how it works so that I don't get screwed over if we put a management company or something in there. I need to know how it works. So excuse me, that journey, I started working as soon as I graduated from school in 2016, the summer of 16. And I worked all the way up through COVID in 2020. The first 2 years, I actually really liked it. I was surprised at how much I enjoyed it. And then the next 2 years was almost the opposite. I felt like this was not for me. It didn't fit my personality, didn't fit my skill sets, and I couldn't grow the way I wanted to. My dad was a great teacher, and he had built out this layer of management to be able to teach my brother and I. But then I realized that, hey, I don't really like hotels. And so during those 4 years, I was grinding. It was like 90, 100 hour work weeks, same as this
Oh,
investment bank,
wow.
my family business. And I always tell people during December, I worked every single day of December, even Christmas, and the minimum amount of hours I worked was like 12 hours. It was an insane December. And
Is
so
that like y'all's busy season?
so it is because we have a large banquet hall in the hotel, and so it was being rented out every single day for holiday parties, for whatever, right?
Wow.
And then we also live next door to the Space Force base, Vandenberg Space Force, so we're pretty consistently occupied throughout the year. Um, Long story short, I like really came to hate the hotels, and I didn't like the way I felt about the business that gave me the life that my father was able to give me. And so at that point, and I want to reverse back for a second. People thought I would be getting paid a lot of money. Oh, your dad owns a Hilton. Your dad owns this, that. But I wasn't getting paid $40,000 or $45,000 a year for those 4 years working 100 hour work weeks. So at that point, it was right before COVID hit, and I had about 70K saved up in my bank account, and I had sacrificed all my social relationships, everything. So I had this money, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I told my dad, I said, "Hey, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think it's time I leave the business." So I left the business, moved back in with my parents because I didn't know what to do at that point. Had my 70K, and I started researching. Hey, what do I want to do? Ultimately, I ran into a real estate investor after I was like, do I want to open a bar? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do that?
Right.
Ultimately, I landed on rental property investor. I thought houses were cool. I loved the HGTV shows and everything. So I told myself, I said, hey, I think this is what I want to do. I'm going to aggressively educate myself for 90 days. And then after 90 days, whether or not I feel ready or not, I'm just going to go after it and find my first deal. So I ended up doing that. After the 90 days, it took an extra 5 months to find the right fixer upper property. I went through a bunch of different channels to find it, but that's how I started my journey. And so that first rental basically turned into I refied out, got my life savings back because I dumped everything in there and was freaking out in the process. I got my 70K back plus 30K, so I had 100K to work with. And then at that point, I was like, I don't have any income coming in. It took me 8 months to get this done. And I'm only making $100 a month in cash flow. I said, I need to find another way to make money. So that's when I kind of stumbled into flipping. And then, fast forward to today, I flipped my first house. It changed my life. I made over six figures. And I was like, oh my goodness, I did this in 4 months. This is insane. So I started
Wow.
yeah, it was crazy. And I did flip after flip. And ultimately,
Tell,
to present day,
tell us about that first flip, kind of the process, like how did you do it? So you buy this first rental property, you refi, cash out your 70K you put in there plus an additional 30. So now you have 100K. So are you doing your next deal? Is that flip or does this come a couple years after?
no, so surprisingly, it took me 8 months to get my first deal and then 2 months to get the second deal. And I felt like all of that cumulative work just snowballed into something. And after that, I've never not got a deal in a month. So there's always been a couple properties a month or a development deal or something like that that have come after that first deal. With the second deal, it was a little scary because it was a heavier lift. There was a lot of like electrical, plumbing, roof. I still didn't really know how to renovate anything, so I said I just have to do this. So I got some bids. I read some books on flipping houses, YouTube videos, and God willing, it turned out the way I wanted it to turn out, and it was just a sign for me to keep moving forward in that direction.
That's awesome, man. I love the fact that you used YouTube University. I tell my kids the same thing. I tell people all the time. With the advent of modern technology, there are so much knowledge on platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn. LinkedIn Learning now is a great platform. You can take e-classes, online classes for any major university, right? Across the US. Those opportunities, I think, kind of helped you, and you do this flip. Now, tell me how you're feeling and what kind of next steps Priyesh has to build this large real estate empire.
Yeah, so I'm the type of guy who it's almost like a squirrel where I'm not amused for too long and I need to find that next deal, that next hit, so to speak. Everyone calls me a drug addict because I need a
Yeah.
deal like now. So as soon as I got that check, I was happy for a split second. I was like, oh my goodness, I can do this. I can make this a career. Okay, next deal. And so surprisingly, I ended up getting two deals at once, and I used hard money loan to take both down. That profit, I now had 220,000 in my bank account. I allocated half to the first deal and half to the second deal. And then both of those flips turned into multiple six-figure flips. So I'm just freaking out at this point. I was like, oh my goodness, I almost made $500,000 and it hasn't even been a year yet in my flipping career.
Wow.
Yeah, it was something crazy. And it wasn't because I was some genius. I was doing the right things and being thorough, but I was also being led by a beautifully inclining market, right? Because after COVID, things just exponentially blew up with housing
Mhm.
prices. So I was riding
Definitely,
that wave.
especially in California.
Absolutely. I was happy to ride the California appreciation wave for single family houses. It was awesome. And then to basically present day now with the whole real estate company, I still have the fix and flip and wholesaling company, but focus more on luxury fix and flip. Because I'm in Santa Barbara, Montecito, LA, San Diego. They're all like multiple $1 million price point homes, and there's still a market to flip those homes. Just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's nice, right? It's in California. So you can have a $3 million home that's a fixer upper in San Diego, for example. So I buy those kinds of homes, I rehab them, and then I just flip them. But like ultimately, flipping is a hamster wheel. It's just a really high paying job. And so I realized this. I was making money. The company was kind of self-sustaining at that point, and I knew I had to find another way to create that like stable income, monthly cash flow. That's where I fell into development, and so I ended up dumping all of my fix and flip profits, flip, reinvest into raw land or redeveloping existing properties. So right now I have some development projects going. I have a couple in Santa Barbara County, and then I have two in the city of San Diego going right now.
Nice, nice. Now you're getting into my world. I love this. So I will say one thing about development. We have my first project is going to break ground here in April. It's a 50 townhome subdivision, a mile and a half from Apple's new East Coast headquarters. Um, the Research Triangle Park here, which is Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill in North Carolina, has the highest concentration of PhDs outside of Silicon Valley. And our Research Triangle Park, which covers over 20 to 25,000 acres, is set up for campus like systems, right? Like Cisco is headquartered here, NetApp, Fidelity, Biogen, a lot of those companies are here. Google's cloud engineering hub is here, and we have a ton of biotech. So, like a lot of my neighbors, actually, because I live in the area where our first project is, have all moved in from California. So we're riding the California exodus wave. And for those not going to Texas and Florida, the third market they're coming to is North Carolina. We added about 500,000 people since 2020.
That's amazing. I've heard a lot about that Research Triangle, and I have some family out there. I would love to get into markets like that, but there's just too much going on in California right now.
No, that's awesome. What have you seen so far are your biggest challenges moving from the fix and flip to the development? Because I'll tell you on our end, it took us 3 years. So I bought this land in April of 2021, and we are finally going to be breaking ground in April of 2024.
Sounds about right. California is no better. Even for houses, if you need to do structural work or foundation work, you need to submit your plans to the city. For a house, it's going to take you 12 or 14 months just to get approved in the city of Santa Barbara. So, and development's no better. It's 2 to 3 years to be able to get something RTI and start building ground up. But the city of San Diego, unlike Santa Barbara, San Diego is a little bit better. You can actually get something from submittal to breaking ground in about 12 to 14 months now. So it's they're trying to expedite the process because
Oh,
San
wow.
Diego is like I believe it's the number one real estate market in the country right now, and Santa Barbara is number three. So I'm working in some great markets right now. And the city of San Diego sees that people are still moving to San Diego at a rapid rate. And we are a negative 20 something thousand units at this point. And so they're really trying to speed the process up for developers.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. That's good to see. I've seen some of those zoning changes. I know a couple other buddies of mine who are developers down in San Diego, and I think what they're finally doing, and this was the reason why housing in California was so expensive, is because there just hasn't been new inventory there based on how many people have moved there over the last 30 years.
Absolutely. I actually gave a presentation on this to a group a couple days ago. And right now, the nation, I'm not just talking about California, but the nation is 6.5 million units behind on their supply shortage, right? And we're only building 500,000 units a year. So it would take over a decade in order to fulfill that demand, right? And when I say unit, that's a single family home. This is not even
Yeah.
multifamily. That's just houses nationwide.
No, that's 100% true. I love that. That is one of the main reasons in my calling card to pivot from what I had been doing in banking and finance to go full time into real estate development. Because the other thing I see if you look at countries in Europe, in Southeast Asia, East Asia, um, the Chinese lost 2 million in population just this past year because there is zero immigration to China. There's zero immigration to Japan or South Korea, and their birth rates are extremely low. So they are losing people. China's population will have by the year 2100 from 1.3 billion to about 650 million. Whereas the US population by the year 2100 is projected to be around 5 to 600 million because of immigration. I think this is still the greatest country in the history of the world. And just like your mom and dad, my mom and dad, they wanted to come to the US to create a better life for themselves. And that's why we add 1 million people to this country every year because our birth to death ratio is a negative 500,000 people. As the boomers get older and pass away, the millennials and Gen Z, there's just not enough of us, right? And so we need that constant flow of immigration, in which a majority of it's coming from India. Really
Yes.
cool fun fact. I'm not sure if you know this, you probably do. The country with the most immigrants to the United States from the year 2000 is not China, it's not Mexico, but it's India.
I'm not surprised. I know a lot of people. I mean, think about it. A lot of us Indian Americans are very successful in business and things like that. And so when their family members and the word gets around in the home country of India, they're like, hey, why can't we have some of that? I mean, I was in Mumbai and it's just poverty stricken. Most of it, I don't like to down on a city, but like there's a lot of development going on, but the buildings, the infrastructure, everything is so deteriorated. There's only a few new luxury high rises kind of catching up with modern times. Everything else built, it looks like 60 or 70 years ago and hasn't had one maintenance check since its inception.
That's very true. I mean, I'll tell you, my uncle is actually a developer in Mumbai. It took him 7 years. He's building 2 75-story towers that are connected on the 53rd floor with a bridge. And they have to go about 3 stories underground to put in their concrete footings and parking and some other things. It took him, under the Modi government, 7 years to get all of the approvals. He
Wow,
finally got the approvals last year, and they're going to be starting construction this year.
that's amazing.
But you're 100% correct in the sense that the poverty, just the mass and sheer amount of people. India is the most populous country with a land mass that is the US east of the Mississippi River, right? And so the Darvi slums where you were in Mumbai have 10 million people that live in abject poverty. And then that's not even talking about all the ones that live in the countryside. So I think you're going to see a lot more of the immigration here, at least legally. And without getting into the politics, we all know there is some amount of illegal immigration coming in from the southern border. So, with all of that, I think it comes back to what both of us discussed is that need for housing. So, with that need for housing, kind of talk to us about either one of your projects or kind of like your future plans and anything that you're planning on doing.
Absolutely. I'll talk to you about the ones that are going to get approved the quickest. So those are my San Diego projects. They're in a neighborhood called North Park, which for anyone who lives in San Diego or has been in the city, it's a very eclectic, trendy neighborhood. It gentrified over a decade ago. So I like to call North Park, if anyone's been to Portland, Oregon before. And Portland used to be very hip, trendy before COVID happened, politics aside. But I called North Park the clean version of Portland, basically.
Okay.
It's a beautiful neighborhood right by downtown San Diego, and that's where the two projects are. Currently, with the zoning laws, that I'm able to build micro units, so each unit's going to be about 535 square feet, and there'll be 49 units for each project, multifamily build outs. And we're going to be building, it's going to be about 5 stories high with each
Oh,
building. So I'm
wow.
basically doing a copy paste of one project for the other project, because the land, everything is basically the same square footage and acreage and things like that. So I was able to just re-engineer a little bit based on the topography of that specific land, but use the same design and everything.
That's awesome, man. Tell us, those types of projects require a lot of capital. We've been raising funds. I'm launching this year a new $25 million fund for our projects. How do you plan on raising the capital? Are you going to do syndication? Are you building a GPLP structure? And go ahead and do some marketing here for anyone interested in investing in San Diego with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have that fund structure that allows me to advertise the deals specifically. So if anyone is interested in specific details, you can always follow me at Preyesh_Patel. But as far as the way I capitalize these deals is, so I like to build one fund per development project. So I've built out 4 funds so far. 3 of them have been filled. One of them I'm about to fill, and I like to syndicate the funds basically. So I'm the GP. I don't put up any money in my deals typically. Maybe some for the EMD and just soft costs for the plans and permits and things like that. But the LPs are really the ones basically funding the down payment and construction costs to get that loan out. And then ultimately, there's a lot of built-in equity in these deals in San Diego. So we do the Burr method, right? So we're refining out all of our money once the projects are completed and kicking out the construction loan.
Nice, nice. That's awesome, man. Um, so these are a couple questions I ask all my guests. If you were mentoring, like you were talking about, you like to mentor younger children, kids, or people coming up, what would be one or two things that you would talk to them about if they are going to ask you, hey, Priyesh, what do you think I should do when I grow up, or what I should be?
I would say that there's not a one size fits all answer. I would like to ask them a few questions to get to know them and their personality types and things like that. And then ultimately, to give a blanket answer, I would say that I would tell them to try a lot of different things, because I didn't necessarily know what I liked and didn't like until in my mid 20s, basically. And still then, a lot of people aren't even lucky enough to find what they love in their mid 20s. Some people never get there, right? And so my opinion to people is be open to ideas, be open to trying new things, and don't be afraid to feel stupid for doing something that you think you may or may not like. It doesn't hurt to try. That's my opinion.
I love that. Try different things. If you fail, fail fast, fail quickly, and move on to the next thing. Correct?
Exactly.
That's awesome, man. Um, if you had something to say to kind of your parents who brought you here, have kind of instilled in you and talked to you about being what it is, a new American entrepreneur, what would you describe that as?
Yeah, I would let them know that I appreciate the platform that they allowed me to build off of, and their hard work will never go unnoticed. And I'm forever grateful for their sacrifices, because they did sacrifice a lot up until just recently.
No, that's awesome, man. That's great. Um, Thank you, Priyesh, for coming on the pod, brother. I really appreciate it. Excited. I'm sure you are. I am as well. Your wedding's probably going to be amazing. 5 days, like a normal Indian wedding. Excited about all your projects that are coming along. I would love to have you on in the future where we can kind of talk about what's going on once you break ground or get some sales or lease ups in one of those projects. Would love to talk about that. Is there anything else you want to share in terms of your socials, your website, or anything?
Absolutely. So I just wanted to say thank you again for having me on your podcast. It's a great opportunity, and best of luck to you and your projects as well. And I would absolutely be open to doing this again. And if anyone is interested in following me, I do post a lot of content, whether that be real estate, health and wellness, and things like that. You can follow me at my first name underscore last name. So Preyesh underscore Patel on Instagram.
Nice, nice. And you post some great content, man. You might as well just add influencer to one of your names as well.
I appreciate that.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for being on the pod.